Good morning and welcome here to join me in the UK. My name is Helen Jennings and it is great to be here with you for another stamp camp. They are always such fun and it is always great to be partnering with these wonderful demonstrators. So it is lovely to be here with you today. We have just hit midday here in the UK, so it's coming up for lunchtime. So I shall do my demonstration with you, and then it'll be time for lunch. So wherever you are in the world, whether it is early morning, breakfast time, it is lovely to have you joining us. Good morning. I can only see a Facebook user. I can't see who it is who's saying good morning. So good morning, whoever it is. It's lovely to have you joining us. So let me first of all introduce myself so that you know where to find me should you wish to. Um, this is me, Love-a-Duckie. So that's where you will find me. That's my website, www.loveaduckie.co.uk. And if you are looking to follow me anywhere on social media or to check me out, you need to look for Love-a-Duckie, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, all of those places. Do head over and check out what we are up to in this part of the world. It's lovely to have you join me at any time. So without further ado, let me bring in my downward facing camera and let's have a little look at some of the things I have been creating and the thing that we are going to be creating this morning. So this is the card that you should have in your make and take packet, this little joy fold card. Oh, hi, Kylie. Hi, and good night. Good night to you as you're heading to bed. I was just watching your catching up on some of the other demonstrators. So lovely to see you. So this is the little joyful card that is in with your make and take packs. And there's a couple of others that I've made here. A very simple little sympathy card using a bit of emboss resist on the bottom here with these shells, a bit of sponging over the top, and some of the pearlized paper as well to cut those little shells down the bottom there. So a little sympathy card just there. We've got some layered up sand and torn vellum sea and some balmy blue sea there, a few little splatters in the background, but using the lovely oyster shell with its beautiful pearl in there that I've added a little bit of Winker Stella to. So that's a sort of nice little layered up card just there. And then this one is using those fabulous Picture This dies. I love those dies. And cutting these apertures out of this piece of DSP from the pack, and then using those stamped and die cut images to add some detail to those panels that we've created. And the background there has got some sponging in it. Hello, Leanne. Lovely to have people joining me. So there is a few little cards that I have created. I will be sharing at least a couple more when it comes to the crafternoon tea this afternoon, and I will share. I've used this suite for 2 of my challenges. 2 out of the 3 challenges I've managed to use the suite for, so I'll share those with you later. But what are we going to do now? We are going to create a block easel card. So if I turn it that way, you can see that you've got an easel card, but then you've got this block piece just here to act as a stand for your easel. And I've actually used my block to pile up some shells on the top of it. And in the background there, we've got the bird again. We've got some sort of sand and sea, and I've used some of the tags from the Something Special dies, which is a set of dies, Something Fancy. I always keep calling it Something Special. They obviously are something special, but they're called Something Fancy. So I've used some of the Something Fancy dies to create this label in the background there. So I have already, to the description of the video, added the basic measurements for creating your basic easel, but then I have a few more measurements to add to that, but I've given you that basic card base because that's probably the piece that you're going to want most. And here is one that I have created earlier. So I'm obviously using A4 cardstock and metric measurements here in the UK. So I have got a piece of A4 that has been cut in half along its length. So it is 29.7 centimeters long, and it is 10.5 centimeters wide. So the score lines that I have already scored on here is 1.5 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 4.5 centimeters, and 6 centimeters. And that is these pieces just here. I didn't grab out my bone folder. Let's try and grab it without knocking over my water. So that's these measurements here: 1.5, 3, 4.5, and 6. And that's what's going to create your block in the bottom. Then we have a score mark at the halfway mark, which is 14.9. I was smiling. I caught up on the introductory Zoom. I don't know if you've all seen the Zoom that everybody was on the first thing this morning when I was in bed, with Diane talking about this the fact that our metric cardstock doesn't easily go into half. I have to say that when I am scoring at the halfway point, so I've on my score marks I put 14.9, and 14.9 will work brilliantly. When I tend to be scoring, I tend to take my cardstock up to the 14.9 mark, and then I just drop it back a smidge, because the actual halfway point is 14.85. So I always tend to do it just a smidge short. That is an official term. That is a technical term. And just a little smidge short of the 14.9. And that's how I get around that little bit. But 14.9 will work absolutely fine. So we've got a score line at 14.9, which is our halfway point. And then we've got a score line at 22.4, which is going to fold this in half here and give us our easel section like this. So that's 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 14.9, 22.4, and that will give us our easel. Now, whenever you're making an easel card, you do need to get your bone folder out and give all of these scores a good burnish so that it does sit forward nicely. So there we are. That is our basic. That's your basic building block. Looks like a pyramid and a little sort of a square in the front. So that is what you're aiming for with your card base. Now, I've just realised that there's one piece I haven't cut, so let us put that right instantly. I went through and cut thought I'd cut all my pieces of cardstock and things, and I've missed one. But what I need, I scrabble around. Here's a piece of basic white card, and this just needs to be cut at 10.5 by 14.9, and this is going to form our forward facing panel on our easel just here, like that. But I won't start sticking any of those pieces together yet. We'll start off by having a bit of a play and building up our layers and things on here. Now, I have already gone ahead and cut some pieces and die cut some pieces just so that we're not here. You know, I shall want my lunch. We don't want my tummy to start grumbling. So, quick slurp of water. I have got here a piece of Petal pink cardstock. So if we're in Imperial, of course, this will be your piece of cardstock will be 11 inches by 4.25, and you have got all of these measurements and the instructions, and it will tell you where to score it. Your little box spaces are 5/8 of an inch increments, then scored in half, and the half scored in half again. But you've got all of those measurements there for you to have a look at and to follow if you want to have a go at creating this style of card. So here I have got, say, a 14.9 by 10.5 piece that's going to form my front panel. So that would be 4.25 by 5.5 in Imperial. Petal pink piece matte to go on the top, which will be 14.4 by 10 for me here in Metric Land, and would be 5.25 by 4 if you're doing Imperial. So your standard matte, size matte on a card. I've picked up a glue that doesn't want to play ball. That's typical, isn't it? Let's bring in another combo and let us stick that on there. I've taken a piece of DSP and I've chosen this piece that's got the sort of petal pink Coastal Cabana Sahara sand shells on it. Really pretty little bit of paper. And let's add that. So it's the one that's got, we're going to be covering up these gold flashes on the back. Obviously you can choose different papers and do different colours. You don't have to be as creative as you like. I've also cut myself a couple of pieces of card, and this piece is a Coastal Cabana piece that is 6 centimeters by 9.5. Let me just check that I've got that right. It is 6, isn't it? Yes. And this one is a piece of Sahara sand that is 4 centimeters by 9.5. I'm going to die cut both of these. With, oh, she says, with my long die. Where has my long die gone? Oh no. That is not what we need. We do not need dies going missing. Well, it has indeed gone missing. It's typical, isn't it? The borrowers have been in and have taken my die. So take your long die that you have in your set of dies and you can cut the top of your cardstock to make it sort of a wavy sea line effect. I am not going to be able to do that because my die has completely disappeared off the face of the earth. But that is okay. We will go with the other alternative, which is to tear it. And I'm going to tear it towards me to give me the fluffy edge. So for those of you that don't like tearing, and I know at least one lady on here that's joining us that it gives her the shivers and the EBGBs. You had that die to do it for you, and on this original one it was the die that I used. Now what I will say using that die is you're better off turning the die round and cutting this edge. Now I haven't got it to show you what I mean, but if we imagine that this strip of card is the die and this is the cutting edge, rather than doing it so that the cutting edge is at the top and the rest of the die is lying across the cardstock, what happens if you do that is you do get a little bit of a line, and it's not a major problem, but you do get a little bit of a line across your cardstock. Instead of doing that, take your cut edge and rest it that way so that the cut edge is just along the top of your cardstock and the rest of the die is not touching your cardstock at all, and cut it that way, and then you'll get your cut edge, but you won't get that line that you get if your die is resting across your cardstock. So that's a bit of a top tip to show you with a die that has disappeared. Right, what I'm going to do now is I've got some white craft ink here, and I'm just going to rub that directly from the pad across the top of this Coastal Cabana piece. just to give it sort of the effect of a little bit of sea foam. And then our sandy piece just here. So let's stick this sea piece in place. I'm going to stick that on here. We'll stick it down now so that it doesn't wander off, never to be seen again, to join the dye wherever that has gone. No doubt the minute I come off of the live, it will jump out at me and go, here I am, I was hiding. I haven't had it this morning, I had it last night, so it's not going to be far away. I'm going to take this stamp that has, I do love this little stamp, it's probably one of my favourite stamps in the set. You've got this little stamp here that's got the sand with the seashells sitting on it, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to stamp across my sandy piece. And if you do need, you feel you need a bit more filling in, we've got this other little just dotty sandy stamp just here, and we'll just fill in a bit more with those dots just there. So there we have our sandy beach with our shells on it. And we'll add that piece, and this is on Sahara sand cardstock. So we'll add that piece just there. Now what I am going to do now is I'm going to start to bring this together. I'll find my little pack with all my pieces in. I've got some strips of Petal Pink in here and some strips of gold foil. So, and these are going to go onto this piece just here, this front facing piece and this top facing piece. So that is that one and that one. So not the first two, the next two. And I've cut these Petal Pink pieces so they are, this one is 10 centimeters wide, and I've made it 1.3 centimeters. So it would be, if you were doing your 5/8 of an inch, you'd want it about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch shorter, 1/8 of an inch less on the width. And then I've got some pieces of gold foil, and these are 9.5 by 1. So you'd want those to be about 3/8 of an inch long and wide. 3 3/3 inches wide. This one would be 4 inches wide. So we've got those little strips just there. I'm now going to add some glue, some adhesive. I'm going to use Tombow. You could use Stampin' Seal Plus. I'm going to fold this piece in half like this and stick that down and give that a good press. And then when we pop that up, we'll have our box. So it's this first piece that's had the adhesive on it, fold that back on itself, stick it down, and then you'll have your little box piece. So there's our box piece. We now need to stick our easel, front facing easel piece to this front piece just here. So we want to ensure that we don't put too much glue on so that it doesn't stick anywhere else. So by far the easiest way of doing that is to add your adhesive to this panel and not to that panel. So as you can see, I've got my box lying underneath, and it's the back of this panel that I am gluing this to. Let's line that up there. And that will then stand up like that. So we've got our DSP in the background there. We've got our sort of sea effect one. We've got our sandy effect one. And now we need our little pieces to come on the front. So I have already die cut some pieces, but I've got some pieces to stamp and die cut as well. So let's leave all the pieces I've die cut in that bag so they don't wander off. See, I have no faith in my borrowers that they won't just come along and run amok and run off with all my little bits and pieces. Right, so let's start with shells. And what I have done, what the ones I've done with my shells, I have taken this little, the curly whirly shell just there. And I have stamped one of those in Sahara sand. And one in Coastal Cabana. And the pointy shell, that comes up a block for that one, I think. Again, I've done one in Sahara sand and one in Coastal Cabana. Just got my chamois off to one side that I'm cleaning my stamps off with. And then we've got this large shell just here, and I've actually stamped that one in Petal Pink. So let me shut these two up for a moment. Bring in my Petal Pink. There's a little row of shells. The other thing we want is our little bird. So for the bird, I'm going to take the Coastal Cabana and a blending brush. And I'm just going to tickle a little bit of Coastal Cabana ink onto the piece of cardstock just there. And then I am going to take, now I'm doing it this way, I am putting the ink blending down first and stamping onto it afterwards, because I found that if I tried to stamp the bird first and then blend over the top of it, because I was using, unless you really leave it to dry, you might find that your navy blue ink blends in with your green ink and gives you a bit of a smudgy effect, which I didn't want. So I'm just instead going to stamp over the top of my blending like that, so that my bird's got a little bit of green added to him. I think possibly my Night of Navy is quite juicy at the moment, and yeah, I just got a splurge. So easier to do it that way to avoid a splodgy mess. So here we have our little 5 little shells and 1 little bird. Let me bring in my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss. That will fit quite nicely on there. So with these plates, it will fit a piece of card that's about 8.9, just under 9 centimeters wide. Let's find our dies that are going to match. You'll see across the top of my machine, I've got lots and lots of little bits of low tack tape, because you can reuse them till such a time as they completely fall apart. And I am just going to add some tape to these dies So we have the little bird. One of these little shells. And obviously at the moment, the little mini Stampin' Cut Emboss is part of a starter kit offer. So either this original white one or one of the boho blue ones, which is quite fun. I'm just using my original white one here. So I've added those down and stuck those dies down, ready to run through. Now I am using my #1 plate, a #2 acrylic plate, and another #2 acrylic plate. These mini, like all die cutting machines, your machine is going to have its own little tensions, and every machine is slightly different. If you have 3 machines, and it doesn't matter what make they are, if you have 3 die cutting machines in your craft room, each one will be slightly different. Each one you will get to know yourself. You will get to know and love your particular machine and what it likes and what works with it. So I know some people have had some problems getting their machines to work. Now there are a couple of tricks and tips to get your machine working properly. For some people, they find that swapping their #1 plate for the #3 embossing plate and using the #3 embossing plate with their #2 acrylic plates works beautifully. I never have any problems with my #1 plate, but what you do need to do as you're making up your sandwich is to have your #1 plate with your #2 plate, drop it back slightly, and then your second #2 plate, bring it so it's in line with your first plate. So what you get when you turn that round is like an E. So you've got your 2 pieces here, and the third plate that's dropped back a little bit gives you this sort of E effect, the letter E, capital E effect. And what that does is as you're driving it through the machine, it gives a little bit of flexibility for that to squeeze together as it hits the rollers, and to draw that piece in before you get the whole width of the 3 plates. So just draw that in and run it through. And you may find that over time, your machines, as they are used, and they might alter a little bit, and you might find that you need to wiggle around a little bit more. So yeah, no 2 machines are ever the same. It is only possible to get them within a certain level of exactness, if you like. You always know your own machine. You tend to know where it's got a little bit of a spot where you need sometimes to add a shim, or which is the best part of the plate to add your dies to. You get to know your own machine. A bit like you get to know your own children and what their little quirks are. You get to know your own machine and what its little quirks are. But if that is a helpful in getting your machine to work beautifully every time, because it is a fabulous machine. So again, let's line that up. Let's make our little E so that center plate is dropped back a little bit. And let's wind through our little shells. Fold up our machine, tuck it away. That's the fabulous thing. It takes up no space at all. Doesn't take up too much space on your desk, doesn't take up too much space on your shelf. Well worth having. Right. So now we have our little card. let's bring in some of our other die cuts. So other things that I've got here, I have die cut some sea grasses. Out you all come. A little Coastal Cabana one there that wants to stay. I'll come back to the label in a minute. And I think 3 of my sea grasses. So for the front of the card, I have got our shells that we've just cut and our bird. I have a large gold foil shell and 2 small gold foil shells. And then I have a large petal pink grass and 2 smaller grasses in Coastal Cabana and Sahara sand. So let's start by adding in some of these grasses. So you could have done these on adhesive sheets if you like, but actually I'm only going to put glue towards the bottom because I'm putting it together with the card sort of standing up, if you like, so that I can decide where the bits all go and what it will look like when it's standing on somebody's shelf rather than lying flat. Add a little bit of ink there. That was a little bit of glue there. There's quite a lot of glue on there, so I'm going to share that glue between the 2 pieces of grasses. This one I'm going to have coming up at an angle like this. And I haven't added glue to the top. I want it to be sort of a little bit free flowing at the top there, so the sea breezes can come across and blow that grass. Right, let's bring in some dimensionals for our bird. So we'll pop him up on some dimensionals. I'm going to put another little one, I think, just down here. So we'll have him. I'm going to tuck his feet in slightly. Have him there. And then over on this side just here, we'll put some of these shells. So I'm going to take one of the small ones. And add that just here. And then this Sahara sand one. Let's put a couple of dimensionals on the back of that one. I'm going to have that coming across here. Then I'm going to take this one, and I think we'll perhaps get away with one big one on the back of there. And I'll have that coming in here. So there we have some shells sitting in the back there. And now we want some shells sitting on this top shelf. One glue. One. Let's bring that across a little bit. And pop a dimensional on there. And a dimensional on here. Oh, we've got somebody just waking up. It's great to have people waking up, people going to bed. And then this shell just here, I'm going to stick this directly onto that shelf, and this little one just here. We'll have peeping out underneath. So a little collection of shells on the front and down there. So now we've got our tag to look at. So say for the tag, I dug into my Something Fancy dies just here, and I took these two labels just here and this piece just here. So by lining this piece in the top of the die just there, as I ran it through, I was able to create a Coastal Cabana and a Sahara sand label with our little sort of teardrop shaped hole in the top there to thread our ribbon through. So we're going to come back to, let's come back to the Sahara sand label, and let's come back to our Sahara sand stamp, this one with the shells on. We'll just stamp some shells and some sand across the bottom of the label just there. And then we'll take, I've got the thank you for everything sentiment just here. Obviously you could swap these out, they can use sentiments from other sets if you wanted a happy birthday or something. But I've got a thank you for everything, so I'm just going to stamp that across here. Now I chose a different ribbon to come through this tag, and this is the ribbon from the, I'm sure it's the Happy Forest Friends. I may be wrong with that, maybe something completely different, but you get a combo of the Sahara sand and old olive, and you have to love some old olive ribbon. So I'm going to thread this through here and through here. I'm going to add some Tombow to the back of here and lining that up where we want it. Let's bring it down a little bit, about there. And let me take my ribbon scissors. I always keep one pair of scissors as ribbon scissors, so I don't use them to cut paper and things, otherwise that does tend to blunt them a little bit over time. So now we've got our piece of ribbon tied through there, and we need a piece of linen thread to come round it. Now I'm going to dig about, because somewhere these aren't my, I have got a pair of Stampin' Up tweezers like this now, but these are just a pair that I've had for years. Just going to hold that down like that. There's an extra pair of hands while I take some linen thread. So the Stampin' Up ones you'll find in the embossing toolkit. Got a brush and tweezers and a stamping embossing buddy and a tray. But these tweezers are so helpful and so useful. The tweezers that you have to squeeze to open rather than having to squeeze to keep them shut. Again, let's come in with our scissors and trim that off a little bit. Have a bit of a tweak with our until we're happy with it. So then I have another piece of Coastal Cabana grass. Just add a little bit of glue on that to come here. And another small piece of Sahara sand grass. That coming here as well. And then let's add that to the front of our easel. So I've done that with some dimensionals. And have that coming about there. And then to finish this front, let's bring in some of these pearls. Aren't they just stunning? I'm going to have a big one and a couple of little ones in there to give sort of the impression of little pearly pebbles. So that's the front of our card, but the back is looking a little bit bare. So let me just find some Petal Pink cardstock because I failed to cut this as well. So we're going to want a piece. So this is just under 7.5 centimeters here. So we will call it 7.5 centimeters, and I'm going to cut a piece that is 10 centimeters by 7. And then I'm going to take a piece of basic white. How wide are you? Perfect. Take a piece of basic white that is 9.5 by 6.5. I will put the imperial equivalents up on the back there for you. But this piece here will be about 2 3/4, so this will need to be 2.5 by 4, and this one will need to be 2 1/4 by 3 3/4. She says, guessing off the top of her head, quick off the top of my head math, so don't take that as being completely correct, but I think that's what it should be. So I'm going to add that there, and then I've got one last piece of Petal Pink grass just here. I'm going to add a bit of glue to that, add that in the corner there, add that to the back minus the dimensional back, add that on this back panel just here, ready for you to write your greeting to whoever it is that you are thanking for everything. And of course this will then fold flat, still fold flat to go in an envelope, and then once you pop that up, you're ready to go with your block easel. So number 1 and number 2. So this one is using the die to cut those back pieces, and this one, because the die has been taken by my borrowers, was just torn. So either way works beautifully. So I hope you have enjoyed that project, that block easel card, and that you'll have a go with not only by your base by the bay suite. That nearly wasn't very easy to say, was it? But that you'll also have a go with some of your other things. Yep, so there you go. Yeah, that is the question. It will squish flat beautifully for you to mail it. It will just go in a standard envelope. Don't we love when we get a fancy fold card that we can also just pop into a standard envelope? So thank you for joining me. Time for lunch here. I don't know what time it is there, whether it's some breakfast time or for some of you, it would be a gone midnight feast, I think. But whatever time, lovely. Thank you for joining me, and I will be back quite shortly, really, in another couple of hours or so with Crafternoon Tea. But there's more crafting to come before then. So have a fabulous rest of the day, and I'll see you all very soon.